I'm Paris Lees, and I'm here with Sam Smith for a very relaxed conversation for British Vogue. I should just say that we are sitting, not because we don't like each other, but because we are observing some sort of social distancing. That's
Yes.
2 meters,
This is
right?
2 meters, yeah.
Yeah.
It's annoying. I wish
Yeah.
we could be hand in
I would
hand
like to
having a
touch
chat.
you. I
Me
would like to
too.
embrace
Me
you,
too.
but we shall just make the most of it.
We will.
What are your thoughts on how the world's changed from when you dropped your first single to where we're at now?
It's been 8
Mm.
years of madness for me, but then COVID has definitely been a real, end to all of that, and I think we're all missing it. I miss dancing more than anything. Like, I'm kinda cool with the curfews and stuff, but I just miss dancing. Like, I find it so therapeutic to dance.
Well, I hear that in the album because I've been listening to it and I was like, okay, we're getting some beats here. And I was like, I feel like I've done myself a disservice because I literally want to go out like
Yeah.
this second. You know, like when you're like 15, 16
Yeah.
and you were just so hungry to go and experience that world. 6 months of Corona, I'm kind of
Yeah, you're
back
back
to.
there.
But
I'm the
have you been
same.
finding that quite difficult not
Oh.
being able to go
Yeah,
out?
completely. I love clubbing. Like, I
Mm.
absolutely love it. I moved to London when I was 19 and spent a couple of years in Vauxhall finding myself.
Right. Oh, okay.
Not,
Wow.
no, it sounds dark when you say it, but I was
Okay.
dancing. I was
Okay.
dancing and having a lovely time. For me, just being in queer spaces like that is just so powerful
Mm.
and wonderful. And it's how I found myself really when I moved to London. So I'm definitely not done with it. So I'm really hoping that this all
Mm.
comes to an end at some point so we can all get back to it, because I'm 28 now, so I feel like I've only got another like 5, 6 years in me of
Yeah.
club kidding, and then I'm done.
Do you get a lot of people sort of like coming up to you and going, "Hey," and wishing you well, or do you get do
Yeah.
people pester you? Can you just rock up to any nightclub and
I
to
mean,
go under the radar?
yeah, I mean, I do get people pestering, but I feel like a lot of the time, people are really respectful when they're
Mm.
seeing me have a good time. People are having so much fun in these clubs, in these queer clubs in London, that it just I feel like people don't care that much. Maybe they just don't care about me. If it was someone else, they would.
Would you say that you've learned anything
Oh,
from
during
the
lockdown.
experience?
Oh my
Yeah.
God, so much. Before lockdown, I hadn't really been home for about 8 years properly. I'd been home for probably 2, 3 weeks at a time, and then I'd fly off somewhere. And it was really starting to catch up with my mental health, and I was getting really down. And when COVID happened, my personal experience was that everything stopped.
Mm.
And I had to be home and I had to clean after myself. I had to clean the house. I had to do everything myself. And I'd been relying on a lot of people for a long time. I basically got to root myself in the ground again. And it's been wonderful for that.
Which part of London did you grow up in?
So I grew up in near Cambridgeshire.
Right.
Yeah, I was in a tiny little village. I was
Right.
the only
Because your
gay in the
mum's from
village.
London.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mum and dad are from London.
Right.
And then they moved out to the countryside. And I lived there till I was 18. And then when I was 18, I moved here alone and worked in a bar in St. Paul's. And then, yeah, just hustled my way through.
And did you feel comfortable uh, growing up where you were?
Oh
Were you
gosh,
happy?
it was hard being gay in school, and it was hard. I came out when I was 10. I felt safe to come out within my family, and that was all good. But in school, it was very difficult, feeling like I hadn't met my people or met anyone like-minded. That was difficult. And I had all body issues growing up, which was all exhausting and a nightmare. But other than that, I really was surrounded by a lot of love, and it's my sisters and my parents and my family have just been such a huge part of me still being sane now. I feel very lucky for that. It's part of being a human being, right? Is that it's tough. Like, it's these ups and downs, and you're looking for there to never be ups and downs in this magic place you can get to. I'm trying to learn at the moment to lean into these uncomfortable moments and just accept that they're going to happen.
So what would be an uncomfortable moment in Sam Smith's life in 2020? What challenges are
Do you
you
know what?
facing?
So I had a really bad bout of stage fright towards the end of my last tour, where I never had panic attacks before. So I was getting really scared on stage and just uncomfortable and struggling with my breathing. So I'd say now I've really zoned into what was going on, and to be okay, I've got to be okay with the fact that something might go wrong on stage.
Right.
And it's
Why
almost
were
like
you worried about that?
I was just worried that my voice was going to mess up, or I was going to embarrass myself, or not be good enough for the people watching. You know, it's always not being
Yeah.
good enough. Now, I performed just before lockdown, and it was really empowering because I was like, "Do you know what? If I can go on this stage, I can mess up, I'll fall on my face, and it's okay. It's still, it's going to be a beautiful
I
mess."
feel like you sing a lot about pain, and
Mm.
I've seen this with this album, and you know there's one song where you're talking about going through somebody's phone
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
stuff,
How
and
just the
I'm taking it you've had a bad breakup after
yeah,
listening to
yeah.
this album. So is that something you struggle with?
Yeah, oh
Is
my God. Yeah,
relationships?
it's hard.
Yeah,
It's really,
because
really
I'll put
hard.
my hands up. I do as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard. I
yeah.
mean, I didn't really meet any queer people until I was 19, 20. And then someone told me the other day that if you're queer, you're almost you're 10 years behind. So your 20s are your teenager years and your 30s are your 20s. And I really, really relate to that because I feel like my 20s have just been this like catching up of just knowing what it's like to be fancied or to like someone, and in some ways I feel so grown up and in some ways I feel so young. But yeah, relationship wise, it was, I think the first few records that I made was this unrequitedness, um and this longing that I was going through. But this album it marks my first relationship, my first proper relationship I had, which was a wonderful experience. And I feel so much more grown up after it, and
It changes you,
it
doesn't it?
does.
I
Yeah,
think.
it really
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
Really
And
does.
is it cathartic, sort of dealing with that with the
Yeah.
music?
Yeah. I mean, with this album though, what I did is I tried something different because normally I go in the studio, sit with the piano and just cry out and like write really sad stuff. But with a lot of the writing I did for this record, I went in the studio, and the studio became this safe space where I could just like express myself and dance and just play Robin really loudly and try and make a Robin track and write. A lot of the songs are like small, they're sweet, small pop songs. But what I was feeling at the time was so heavy that it was so nice to have like a relief in the studio.
Yeah.
My relationship opened up my sexuality more than ever before.
And I want to talk about last year you announced, I think you'd said previously that you were genderqueer,
Yeah.
and I think it was on Twitter, right? It was on social media. You put out a statement saying that you're non-binary and please could people use they, them
Yeah.
pronouns. How did
Yeah.
you feel about the reaction to that?
It's something I've always felt non-binary my whole life. And it was 2 years ago I started to just read more and hear stories, and I just saw myself a little bit in them. And there was this relief that there was something to describe.
A word
A word.
for how you'd always
Yeah.
felt.
And a word and so the initial thing was, okay, there's a word for how I feel. That's amazing. That's great. And then I found that there was a word that other people could use that I could ask them to use, and it would change so I was going to be always treated the way that I felt. And it was a big step to make, and definitely felt very official. And I felt like I did have to go through the kind of the beginnings of that in front of people for the first time, which was quite scary. You know, in an ideal world, I would have been home and not famous, and I would have been able to just change my pronouns and figure that out by myself. Um, so it definitely shifted things for me. And suddenly I felt like I wasn't queer enough, and I wasn't this enough, and wasn't that enough. But after the last year, I'm feeling really settled in it, and it's such a wonderful feeling when it flows off the tongue for people.
Yeah.
Like my sisters, it flows off the tongue for them, and it's just this beauty. They just say it so nicely, and they see me fully, and it's a really wonderful feeling.
Did it take them a while to sort of get used to it?
Yeah, just the vocab. My dad and my mum, I spoke to them before doing this, and they've always known. My mum's always been very aware of who I am and how I felt. I mean, people don't know this about me because when I was 20, I came out. When I was 20 and started making music, I was obviously in suits and had my quiff and stuff. But before that, when I was 15 to 18, I was wearing makeup, all female clothing throughout school. So it was something that I was, but then I hid it away when I started becoming successful, I think, because I felt pressure from the industry, pressure from people, and from myself, I think. But it's just been this coming home feeling the last year, which has been so wonderful. And yeah, just to feel comfortable in your skin is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I get it completely, and I absolutely don't want to do that thing where I interrogate you about your gender identity, because I've been there, you know, as a trans person, and you're being interviewed, and it's like that's the only thing the interviewer wants to talk about. But I do think that there'll be people watching who don't really get, you know, what the whole non-binary thing is. So what would you say to people who are like, okay, I sort of understand some people feel they're in the wrong body. I've heard this non-binary thing. I'm not sure what that's all about. What would you want people to know about how you feel?
From being a kid, I've felt very restricted by the male gender being assigned to me as a kid. It's caused horrible things to me.
Tell me about it.
It's been awful, and it's been pretty traumatizing and awful. And I've never, you know, when I was born, I never saw myself as a man. I just felt like I was me, and I was floating somewhere in between. I've even got these tattoos. These are my first tattoos I got when I was 16 years old, and it was because I felt so in the middle. 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you know, people like us were just fighting for the right to, you know, to get married, have kids, all these things. You know, we're just fighting so hard to be like straight people, to have the same rights as straight people. And I feel like as time is going on, queer people are saying, hang on, we don't want to be treated like straight people. We need to be treated like queer people. We need you to treat us like as we are, because it's really hard. And I can't express that. I have to express that so much to everyone around me. You know, even my mum and dad, I talked to loads about it. And I'm like, it was really hard as a kid. You know, I was brought up, I'm white, you know, my family had money, I was comfortable. I was taught to be very thankful for that. But when I look back at being a kid and some of the things I went through when I moved to London and some of the things I was exposed to, even in my privileged situation, it was traumatizing. And I think people...
Do you mean on the... Sorry to jump in. You mean on the sort of gay scene?
Yeah,
Right.
very.
So
I was a overweight, femme, gay person.
Right.
And it was really, really hard.
So you came looking for acceptance and community, and then found hostility
and a bit of rejection,
body shaming.
Yeah, you have to accept that that's your community, and you have to work through it, and you have to forgive, and you have to understand. And the only way that we're, as a community, we're ever going to get stronger is if we acknowledge these things and come together and just be as kind as we can to each other. Even if you have been unkind in your past, because I remember getting obsessed about kindness, like be kind all the time. Got to be kind to everyone all the time. But part of being kind to yourself is also accepting that sometimes you haven't been kind, or things have happened where you couldn't be kind.
You were really mean to me, Ella. Can I just say, off camera, such a nasty person.
Such a nasty
this is
person.
all just for the cameras. Like, you never met somebody so two-faced. Unbelievable.
Two-faced. I'm sorry, you deserved it.
I'm not even going to get into it. So I'm really interested in how fame affects all of this, because it seems to me there's two different things going on here. In the one sense, you've got fame can insulate you to a lot of life's problems. Money can insulate you to a lot of life's problems. But then you've got all of the huge pressures that go with fame. So would you say it's a net gain overall in terms of mental health, or does it just present a completely different set of challenges?
Yeah, people don't moan about fame because I'm privileged, you know. I'm financially okay. I can look after my family. I'm healthy. I wear nice things, and
I love black silk, by the way.
thank you.
So I'm
Feels
into
lovely.
this.
Feels lovely. So people don't moan about. I'm not, and people don't talk about it, and I'm not moaning about it because I'm aware, very, very conscious and aware of all the wonderful things that I have and have around me and how lucky I am. But I've always felt it important to talk about the negatives around it sometimes, and just talk about fame in a real way.
Well, it's honest.
In an honest way, because it's an amazing thing. But I was a very insecure kid, and I think being bullied in school and all the things that happened, I found solace and comfort in this idea of fame. That one day I was going to become well known, and this little hole inside of me that always feels a bit empty is going to be full. And when it happened, that hole didn't get filled, and I was very disappointed. And it's hard. There's sacrifices that have come with it for sure. You know, dating's difficult, walking around's difficult, saying the wrong thing's really difficult. When you say the wrong thing, like a human does.
Yes.
And the cancel culture and the aggression comes into it, it can be really difficult. But after everything, after all of the fame and all of it, I'm still so shocked and like enamored by the power of music. I feel so lucky to be making music and to be in this field, or just an artist, I think, in any way, because the one thing I rest on when I'm finding things difficult and feeling like fame has affected me, the one thing I come back to each time is my singing voice, and that I can sing. And if I sing, that apparently it's making people feel nice when I sing. So that makes me feel nice, that I can make you feel nice. And it's this sharing of stuff. And you've just got to come home to that, I think. When you first, I see so many new artists now going through fame for the first time, and I know that you're in this world where it's all like shiny things, amazing, 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 but you've got to come back to the music, and you've got to come back to the reason why you did that, the trade that you do so well. You need to come back to that and honor it, because that's where the magic is, I think.
Who are you thinking about when you were making this album? Because I was hearing a lot of influences in there.
Yeah.
And listen, I might be going completely crazy, but there's a little bit of George Michael?
Of course.
Okay.
Always.
Okay. Were you a fan?
George Michael was to me was the greatest. Really. I was 15 and I saw George play at Wembley Stadium. I just loved George so much. He was amazing and is amazing, and yeah, so for sure.
Do you get compared to him a lot?
Oh my gosh, I hope not compared.
Well, no, because you're two different people, but I feel like culturally you don't inhabit a completely different space.
I look up to him in terms of his honesty in his sexuality.
Yeah.
For sure. And his navigating of that. Because I feel like he was nothing but honest through the whole thing. And I think he was flawed openly in front of people. And I can definitely relate to that. But to be muttered in the same breath as him would be a huge thing for me, because he was just incredible.
Do you like to read? You don't have to, by the way.
No, I actually do, and I'm looking for a new book.
But I ask people this, and it's like you can see the fear on people's faces. They're like,
I'm ready.
I don't read, I just go on social media these days. But if you do like to read, I hope this isn't tacky.
This is not tacky.
I really hope this isn't tacky. I've brought my book for you. Is that really naff?
No,
this isn't even the cover. This is the proof. And can I just say, I literally got given this like 10 minutes before we did the interview, and I haven't seen this yet.
Honored,
so
honestly.
Can I just have a little?
Yeah, look. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Am I allowed to give it you? I don't think you're going to get COVID from
I'll wipe it.
I'll chuck it over and you can Dettol it.
Looks so beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I think you'll find some stuff in there that I hope will resonate with you.
I'm going to live in it for a bit.
And this one is the Extinction Rebellion. It's got Greta in there and everybody, because I don't know about you, but
I feel like I should be giving you presents.
It's just a thing that I do. Like I always give people books.
I love smelling books.
I wondered, are you worried about the way the world is going? I feel ashamed when I hear Greta you know, saying, why haven't you done anything about it? And it's like, why haven't we done anything about it? You know, let alone our parents. And I'm really concerned, you know, when Sir David Attenborough's talking about we're looking at the collapse of civilization. I do wonder what people think that means, because I'm taking that very literally, and I think he means it literally. And I think some people just don't realize how bad it can get, and who's going to get it in the neck first. And we know it's going to be people of color. It's going to be gender non-conforming people. I'm really concerned about what it means for us in within our lifetimes. And I feel it's already started happening.
It has. Technology is adding to that, because we're seeing everything going on all the time. It's sad that it takes something like George Floyd to actually wake people up. And I just really don't want that to be the case anymore. You know, people need to stand up and say things. They need to speak about the uncomfortable, lean into the uncomfortable conversations. Be wrong. Don't be afraid to be wrong. I see it with pronouns. People get so upset about being wrong. They hate it. It'd be wonderful to hear either sides of government sometimes just being like, do you know what, guys? Really, really good point. I'm sorry, I may have messed up there.
And I do think people need to be a bit more honest about the fact that we've all got little prejudices. We've all got things that we don't know. And that's something I'd like to see more of. People saying, actually, I don't know what this is. And I would love to see that more from the trans point of view. And people feeling like they've got to have an opinion on trans people. And it's like, actually, you can just say, do you know what, this is really outside of my sphere of experience, so I'm just going to listen with an open heart, rather than make life that little bit more difficult.
If you constantly remind yourself that you're enough and that you're worthy, then you can get through absolutely anything in this world. You can, and you will.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sam. And it's just been a real pleasure. And I wish you all the best with the album. I really do, because it's fantastic.
Thank you for these.
Yes, let me know.
Thank you for this.
Let me know how you get on with it.
I cannot wait to read this.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying. So
I can't wait.
And then when this is all over, we're going out. We're going dancing.
We're going to go dancing. It's been lovely to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.